Chairman, I need to make myself very clear. If we uplink now, Skynet will be in control of your military.
But you'll be in control of Skynet, right?
That is correct, sir.
Skynet.
Does anyone need to use the repeater before we begin the 9 p.m. Skynet? This is Whiskey Bravo 5, Oscar Zulu Lima. My name is Brenda. I'll be your net control for this session of the DARC Skynet. Skynet is a weekly net called every Saturday night at 9 p.m. concerning the subject of astronomy. Our purpose is to help amateurs become more familiar with the nighttime and daytime sky, astronomy, and space in general. This net is open to all amateurs interested in this topic, and we encourage your participation, comments, and suggestions for this net. Stations with priority or emergency traffic may enter the net at any time using the pro sign break and your call sign. Is there any emergency or priority traffic? This is a directed net. Please do not transmit without direction from net control, that would be me, and stations are reminded to ID at the end of your transmissions. This weekly net operates on 146.88 megahertz with a PL tone of 110.9. Check-ins via Echolink are also possible using the W5SC-R station ID or Echolink node 37247. Tonight's topics, astronomy charts, pictures, and live audio-video links are available online. Go to w5fc.org right now for the complete list. Remember to tell others about this popular net. All amateur radio operators are welcome. You need not be a member of any amateur radio club to participate. The net is 90 minutes long and is structured in several parts. 1. General announcements. 2. Texas Astronomical Society of Dallas events, where and when you can look through a telescope. 3. National Space Society events. 4. Discussion topic of the evening. 5. What's up? 6. Space exploration and space history. 7. Constellation of the week. 8. Space launches of the week. 9. Recent astronomical discoveries. 10. Visible satellite passages over the next couple of days. 11 is astronomical Q&A, and 12, 73 round. All amateurs licensed to transmit on this frequency are invited to check in. So let's start with low power and short time check-ins. Give us your call sign phonetically, your name, and your QTH. Please come now.
This is Whiskey 5 Golf Uniform Sierra Gus, far northeast Dallas, low power.
This is Whiskey Bravo number 4, Mike Foxtrot India WB4MFI, Ted Dallas, low power.
November 5 Bravo Bravo, Bill in Irving.
Kilo Golf 5 Bravo Zulu Whiskey J near Weatherford.
Okay, we've got W5GUS Gus, WB4MFI Ted, N5BB Bill, and KG5BZWJ. Let's move on to general check-ins. please come now.
Kilo Echo 5, India Charlie X-ray, Tom, Louisville.
Alpha Golf 9 Sierra Golf, Antonio in Dallas.
Kilo India 5, Papa Whiskey November, Tom in Plano.
November Tango 5, Tango Mike, Tony in Dallas.
Kilo Golf 5, David, Mesquite.
Kilo Echo 5, Echo November, Eric, Plano.
This is Kilo Golf 5, Whiskey Victor Lima, James in Carrollton.
This is KF5, JHA, Jazz, Mesquite.
This is Kilo 5, Kilo Tango X-ray, Kelly in Quinlan.
All right, let's pick those up. I'm going to need a couple of fills. We got KE5ICX, Tom. And then Antonio, I missed your call. Would you please repeat it?
Certainly, this is Alpha Golf 9er Sierra Golf in Dallas.
I missed the number of Alpha Golf something Sierra Golf.
Yes, this is Alpha Golf 9 Sierra Golf, AG9SG.
Okay, Alpha Golf 9 Sierra Golf. Okay, then we have KI5PWN Tom, NT5TM Tony. And then David, I missed the last part of your call. You're pretty noisy, but I got the KG5 part. Okay, maybe you can fill us in on that later. Then we have KE5EN, or maybe that's KF5EN, Eric. Which is it?
It's Kilo Echo 5, Echo November, Eric.
Not your fault, it's my handwriting's fault. KG5WVL, James. KF5JHA, Chaz. K5KTX, Kelly. How about Echolink?
Control, this is Whiskey 0, Mike Bravo Charlie, Shane.
And Bethany, Blue Springs. Hi, Dad. I just turned 12 on the 14th. Yay!
W0MBC, Shane and Bethany. Welcome to the net, and we're so glad to see you both. Okay, additional check-ins, please. All right, well, we'll open it up again in a little bit. So let's get started. General announcements. To Do we have any general announcements for this evening's net? This can be ham, astronomical, space, or of general interest to licensed hams. Please come now.
November Tango 5, Tango Mike.
November Tango 5, Tango Mike. Go ahead, Tony.
Thank you, Brenda. I'd like to remind everyone that this is not the last net of the night. We do have the Afterglow movie discussion coming up at about 10:30 or so, featuring E.T. the Extraterrestrial, a classic movie from 1982. This is also not the last net of the weekend. Tomorrow features a meeting on the air at 7 p.m. and a Dallas Racy's training net at 8 p.m. Of course, this Monday will be a third Monday starring Ham Fixins. Ham Fixins is a great net, but I remind you that you should eat before the net or else you'll get hungry. That's this Monday on this repeater at 7 p.m. And finally, we've got a couple of sign-up forms open at w5fc.org. One is if you'd like to volunteer for Turkey Trot. Please do fill that out. That's Thanksgiving morning. The event is on this year. It's a great outdoor public service opportunity to support the Dallas YMCA. Also, if you're coming to the lecture and lab a week from today, well, that's going to be a great lecture and lab. We're going to be hanging out in a park in Irving, building a really easy high-performance 2-meter antenna. You might not even have to solder at all. And really just having some time to socialize with our fellow amateurs in a pretty park. So that's lecture and lab a week from today. Go have a look at w5fc.org, sign up for those events, and please enjoy all our nets this weekend. NT5TM.
Thank you, Tony. Other announcements, the AMSAT Radio Amateur Satellite Group has 2 nets available to Dallas residents. On Tuesday evenings at 8 p.m. Central, you'll need Echolink installed and be registered. You can find the net under Groups and AMSAT. Also, a live audio link is available on their website, amsatnet.com. This net originates in Houston. Dallas AMSAT Net East, Dallas-Fort Worth, Texas, is every Tuesday at 8 p.m. on this repeater, 146.88 megahertz PL, 110.9 megahertz Tuesdays. Tom, N5HYP, is net control. All are welcome to check in. First Tuesday of the month is the DARC Club night, so no AMSAT East that night. Dallas AMSAT Net West is every Wednesday at 9 p.m. on the Arlington repeater, 147.14 megahertz PL, 110.9 megahertz positive offset. Other nets, I think Tony covered most of those. So we will skip on past that. Of course, all that is available on our website. So, tonight's Afterglow, the classic E.T. And this is the official synopsis. This is very accurate, of course. E.T. looked stoically at the other aliens. He collected all his plant specimens and innocently placed them in their launch chambers. The other taller aliens were smoking cigarettes while securing cows and crazy farmers. Others were tilling medical probes for their next abduction. E.T. knew they were doing the important work. He also knew he was small potatoes in the alien abduction game, and most of his stuff would be shoved in the back part of the interstellar craft. He shook his head as he saw telephone lineman type and 5 TBM fighter pilots wandering outside and down the access ramp. Smoke breaks inevitably resulted in captured humans running off while the ship was landed. E.T. sighed, and before he could collect the pilots and telephone repair guy, his ticket out of there took off, leaving him behind. Join us for the popular E.T. the Terrestrial, 1982, tonight at 10:30 p.m. You can keep up with all DARC events, nets, and activities by going to the club website, w5fc.org. And by the way, the synopsis of the movie is brought to us by KE5ICX he wrote that. Don't blame me. Next up, Texas Astronomical Society of Dallas events, when you can look through a telescope. KF5JHA, Shaz, do you have something for us?
Hi, thank you, Brenda. Good evening, everyone. The next Texas Astronomical Society of Dallas Club meeting will be held on Friday, October the 22nd. That's 6 days from now, at 7:30 p.m. The meeting will be held on Zoom. The scheduled speaker is Brother Guy. He's a Jesuit priest, an American research astronomer, a physicist, a Jesuit religious brother, director of the Vatican Observatory, and president of the Vatican Observatory Foundation. Brother Guy is one of the authors of the popular book Turn Left at Orion. Brother Guy's topic is Discarded Worlds, Astronomical Ideas That Were Almost Correct. Past club members will receive an email link to the Zoom meeting in advance of that meeting sometime in the next few days. The Saturday night public observing sessions have been placed on hold again because of COVID. One of the reasons that Skynet was picked to be on Saturday nights was so that there could be an opportunity for live reports from the TASS public observing sessions that are also held on Saturday nights. Check the TASS website, texasastro.org, for up-to-date information and details about meetings and public observing sessions. And this is KF5JHA. Back to our net control. Thank you, Brenda.
Thank you, Jazz. Next up, National Space Society events. I'm going to call on Bill N5BB to give us the news.
Very good. Brenda, this is N5BB, November 5, Bravo, Bravo. I happen to be the membership director of the National Space Society North Texas chapter. If you have any interest in the National Space Society or our chapter, you can contact me at space@byrom.net. That's SPACE @BYROM.net or N5BB@ARRL.net. National Space Society North Texas chapter normally meets in person when we're not in pandemic conditions on the second Sunday of every month at the Spring Creek Barbecue, which is at the the southwest corner of the intersection of Highway 183 and Beltline. This is a little over a mile east of the south entrance of DFW Airport. However, because of COVID, our meeting in October, which was last Sunday, was virtual via WebEx. So again, if you'd like to participate in the virtual meetings or in our in-person meetings as a visitor, be glad to give you essentially a pass login so you can do that, and you can send me an email at those two earlier email addresses I listed. We're not doing very many events now because COVID, the pickup of it here in the last few weeks is kind of, last couple of months has kind of slowed things down. But we did go last week on Sunday, October the 9th. We did have an event we participated in person at the Irving South Library. That is the main Irving Library. It's in central Irving, across the street from Irving City Hall. And we had an event there last Saturday afternoon, which was pretty popular. We had quite a few people came in, and we had a talk we gave one of our members, president of our group. And we gave up quite a bit of literature. We don't have very many other things set up for the near future. because we're kind of waiting for the pandemic thing to get down to the level that schools and museums are more open and willing for us to come in and interact with the public. It's not quite at that level now. And I'm not sure when we'll do our next in-person meeting. I guess it could be in November, but I kind of doubt it. Again, if you have any questions about the National Space Society, which is a space enthusiast group, please let me know. Also, on another note, I got up early this morning at 4 o'clock and watched the Lucy spacecraft take off. This is the spacecraft that was sent up on an Atlas V rocket, considering of an Atlas V booster with a Centaur second stage. And it was launched toward the Trojan the Trojan asteroids, which are the same distance as Jupiter's orbit from the Sun, but they're before or after by a long distance. You can think about a triangle between Jupiter, the Trojan asteroids, and the Sun, and there's two of them, one before and one behind Jupiter. And this is a multi-year mission that will loop back around the Earth 3 times to gain gravitational assists. The spacecraft this morning did open its solar panels. It'll be the furthest distance from the Sun that NASA sent a probe that's relying on solar power, and successfully furled its two large solar panels, unfurled them, and started communication with Earth. So the spacecraft seems to be in good condition, at least as of early this morning. The reason we're going to these Trojan asteroids is because they may tell us a lot about the founding of our solar system and early goings-on. So that's all my National Space Society news for today. This is N5BB. Thank you, Brenda.
Thank you, Bill. Let's see if there are any more check-ins. Please come now.
Kilo Foxtrot 5, Zulu Bravo Lima, Bill, checking in.
Juliet Delta Whiskey, John, Oklahoma.
Foxtrot 5, Papa Delta Sierra, Billy and Sherman on Echolink.
Okay, we have KF5ZBL, Bill, K5JDW, John, and KF5 PDS, Billy. Hey. Okay, let's move into our presentation tonight. The title of this is What Causes Flashes on the Moon? Even though it's so close and has been visited by both robotic spacecraft and human astronauts, the moon can still be a mysterious place. There's a lot we don't know about our nearby neighbor, including what unusual flashes of light and other light phenomena on its surface. These brief light displays, known as Transient Lunar Phenomena, TLP, have been seen for centuries, but they're still not entirely explained. Recently, a professor in Germany announced his new study to try and figure out, at last, what is creating these intriguing lunar phenomena. Hakan Kael is professor of space technology at Julius Maximilians Universität Würzburg, JMU, in Bavaria, Germany. He wants to try and find the explanation for these odd light phenomena. He and his team have built a new telescope in a private observatory in Spain. The new telescope started lunar observations in April 2019. It is in a rural area far from light pollution, about 60 miles north of Seville. As to why it's located in Spain, Kyle said there are simply better weather conditions for observing the moon than in Germany. The telescope has two cameras that observe the moon, remote controlled from the JMU campus in Germany. If a flash or other light source is detected, the cameras will trigger other actions from the telescope, but only if both cameras make the detection. Photos and video are automatically taken and recorded, and an email is sent to Kyle and his team. The software being used by Kyle and his team's telescope is still being refined. Eventually, it will incorporate artificial intelligence, estimated to take another year to complete, so that the system will gradually learn to distinguish a moon flash from technical faults in the telescope or from objects such as birds and airplanes passing in front of the cameras. And what about those SpaceX Starlink satellites? They may also have the potential to create headaches for Kyle's team. Reducing false alarms is a key objective for Kyle. He would later like to use the same kind of cameras on a satellite orbiting Earth, where there is no interference from Earth's atmosphere. Kyle said, we will then be rid of the disturbances caused by the atmosphere. When a flash or other luminous phenomenon is detected, those results can then be compared to those from other telescopes used by the European Space Agency. According to Kyle, if the same thing was seen there, the event can be considered confirmed. Unconfirmed sightings of transient lunar phenomena have been reported for centuries. One of the earliest recorded sightings took place on June 18, 1178, when 5 or more monks from Canterbury reported an upheaval on the moon shortly after sunset. Along with flashes, TLP have been reported as gaseous mists, reddish, green, blue, or violet colorations, other brightening and even darkenings. There are currently 2 comprehensive catalogs, one of which has 2,254 events going back to the 6th century. At least 1/3 of those were seen in the Aristarchus Plateau region. What are the possible explanations for a TLP? One problem with finding explanations is that most reports are made by only one observer or from a single location on Earth, making verification difficult. That said, current theories include outgassing, impact events, electrostatic phenomena, and unfavorable observation conditions in Earth's atmosphere. At least some of them are likely caused by gases escaping the surface during moonquakes, according to Kyle. Seismic activities are also observed on the moon. When the surface moves, gases that reflect sunlight could escape from the interior of the moon. This would explain the luminous phenomena, some of which last for hours. Plus, we know some flashes are likely caused by meteorite impacts, which still occur quite often on the moon. One such likely event was seen on the night of January 20 through 21, 2019, when a meteorite hit the moon's surface during a total lunar eclipse. It was caught in photos and on video, as well as being seen by people just watching the eclipse. It was the first known instance of such a flash occurring during an eclipse. Astronomer Patrick Moore coined the term transient lunar phenomena in 1968 in his co-authorship of NASA Technical Report R277, Chronological Catalog of Reported Lunar Events, 1540 to 1966. In the 1960s, NASA ran its own investigation of TLP called Project Moonblink. Yeah, it was the 60s, wasn't it? The background was described as follows. There have been some puzzling reports over the years. Before 1843, astronomers listed Lynn as a normal but steep-walled crater about 5 miles in diameter. In 1866, Schmidt, a famed astronomer, reported that Lynn was not a crater at all, but looked more like a whitish cloud. Later observers disagreed with both descriptions, saying it was a low mound about 4 miles across with a deep crater 1 mile in diameter in its top. Much later, in 1961, Patrick Moore, one of the foremost lunar astronomers, was astonished that Lynn appeared to be a normal crater about 3 miles in diameter. Moore examined it with 2 telescopes and then called another astronomer. He examined it with a third instrument and reported a similar and inexplicable appearance. The following night was cloudy, but the next night Lynn appeared as Moore had always seen it, a gently rounded dome with a small crater on top. Moore attributed the changes to unusual lighting effects. During the 1950s, several incontrovertible observations have been reported of unusual color activity on or just above the lunar surface. These may be divided into 2 categories: the events localized to a few square miles of lunar area and those covering a significant portion of the lunar surface. Insufficient evidence exists at present to determine whether these 2 types of events are similar or dissimilar in nature. During NASA's Clementine mission to the moon in 1994, several events were reported, 4 of which were photographed, but later analysis showed no discernible differences at the sites where the events were seen. The Lunascan project in the 90s and 2000s also cataloged TSP sightings, which can be read about in the website archives. Currently, observations of TLP are being coordinated by the Association of Lunar Planetary Observers and the British Astronomical Association. While this mystery has yet to be fully solved, it seems apparent that there is likely more than one cause of TLP. Meteorite impacts, as have been observed, are one, but they don't explain all the reported sightings. Other causes may point to a residual geologic activity on the moon, even though it has long been thought of as a dead world. It would be very interesting to see what scientists like Kyle find in their near future. The bottom line, transient lunar phenomena have intrigued astronomers for centuries. Thanks to scientists like Kyle, we might now be closer to finding out just what causes these odd flashes are on our nearest celestial neighbor. And as an aside, reportedly Alan Bean said, was that a flash? So astronauts have seen these, and I would be interested in if any of our own astronomers have observed these. If so, please come now and tell us. Okay, so more check-ins. Please come now. Next up, What's Up? Chaz, KF5JHA. Take it.
Sorry, I was distracted on Echolink. Good evening, everyone. Once again, this is Chaz, KF5JHA, and we call this segment of Skynet What's Up. I'm in charge of the Astrophysics Lab and the Geology Lab at Dallas College on the Brookhaven campus. Let's see now. Slide Masters. That was slide number 1. Slide number 2, please. On Tuesday, October the 12th at 8:05 p.m. Central Daylight Time, Jethro Lee was born with a weight of 7 pounds, 10.8 ounces, and 20 inches long. Why is this important? He is my oldest daughter's second child, and yes, he has more hair than I do. But he gets his good looks from me. Okay, I hear you laughing out there. Slide number 3, Slide Master. On October the 12th, the moon was first quarter phase, so the current phase of the moon is a waxing gibbous. On October the 20th, the moon will be full. On October the 24th, the moon is at apogee, which is the point in the moon's orbit that is furthest from the Earth. And on October the 28th, the moon will be at its third quarter phase. Slide number 4, please. Last night, on October the 15th, Venus and Antares were in conjunction in the western evening sky. They're still close together this evening. I haven't gone out to look, but they may be too low to see, but they could have been good to look at even this evening. Slide number 5, please. On the night of October the 17th, 18th, the Epsilon Gemini meteor shower will peak. We'll have a few meteors seen in an hour of watching the sky from a very dark location. And on the night of October 21st, 22nd, one of the major meteor showers, the Orionids, peak with 20 to 30 meteors seen in an hour in the early morning sky. Slide number 6, please. On November the 3rd, in the early morning eastern sky, you can observe a conjunction of the moon, Mercury, and the star Spica. And later that day, at about 3:04 p.m. Central Daylight Time, the moon will come close to occulting, or in other words, blocking, Mercury from our view, depending on where you are in the metroplex. Some people will see this and some people won't. But since this is a daytime event, you will need a telescope in order to observe this. Because it is a daytime sky, you need to make sure that you do not point your telescope at the sun. Slide number 7, please. A few nights later, in the southwestern evening sky on November the 7th, the moon and Venus are in conjunction. And Venus is the brightest thing in the sky other than the sun or the moon. Well, the ISS is brighter than Venus at times. Slide number 8, please. In the early morning southeastern sky on November the 10th, Mercury and Mars will be less than 1 degree apart in that conjunction. Slide number 9, please. And in the evening sky on November the 10th, the moon will be in between Jupiter and Saturn in the southwestern sky. Slide number 10. Early morning on Friday, November the 19th, there will be a partial lunar eclipse. Actually, this lunar eclipse is almost a total lunar eclipse. 97% of the moon will travel into the Earth's umbral shadow. So most people will see this eclipse as a total lunar eclipse. The moon will enter the lighter part of the Earth's shadow, called the penumbra, at 12:02 a.m. Central Standard Time. This will be difficult to notice by most people. At 1:19 a.m. Central Standard Time, that begins the moon begins to enter the darker part of the Earth's shadow called the umbra. At 3:04 a.m. Central Daylight Time, a little bit over 97% of the moon will be inside the umbra, and this will be the middle of the eclipse and also the eclipse maximum. At 4:47 a.m. Central Standard Time, the moon leaves the umbral shadow of the Earth, and at 6:04 a.m. Central Standard Time, the moon leaves the penumbral shadow. But the last part of the eclipse won't be visible from the Dallas Metroplex because of the rising sun and the moon is setting. And this is KF5, JHA, and this is Skynet. Slide number 11, please. And once again, the Texas Astronomical Society meeting will be held on Friday, October the 22nd, at 6 days from now at 7:30 p.m. And the meeting will be held on Zoom. The scheduled speaker is Brother Guy, and I've already told you what he is. He is hilarious as a speaker. You'll have to visit the meeting to find out more information. Brother Guy is an author of a very popular astronomy book, Turn Left at Orion. And his topic is going to be Discarded Worlds, Astronomical Ideas That Were Almost Correct. Now, we had a couple of public observing sessions a month or so ago, about a month and a half ago, before the COVID ramped up, and then it's been put on pause. So we don't have any public observing sessions that are currently going on with the Texas Astronomical Society, but hopefully we'll resume soon. To find out if and when this is going to happen, you can also visit their website, texasastro.org, and that'll give you details about the meetings and the public observing sessions. Hey, if you want to find out how to buy or purchase a pair of binoculars or telescope, there's even information about that under the FAQs. Slide number 12, please. Now, any of you out there in Radio Land, do you have a question, or do you need to fill on any of the information I've given you? Or maybe you just have a general astronomy question. I don't know everything, but I may know the answer to your question. Or maybe somebody else here on the net knows the answer to your question. Come now with your call sign if you have a question.
W5 GUS.
I wish I knew what your name was, Gus. Oh, wait, I do. Go ahead. What's your question, Gus?
Thank you, Chaz. W5GUS here. Well, I was just curious, a general astronomical question, I guess. Bill mentioned the mission to examine the Trojan asteroids, and I was just curious why they call them Trojan asteroids. Why is that name? Back to net, W5GUS.
I should know the answer to that question, and I don't off the top of my head right now. Does someone else out there have an answer to why it's called a Trojan asteroid? Come now with your call sign.
Number 5, Bravo, Bravo.
Bill, get me out of this. Go ahead.
Well, by the way, so this term is always referred to the Trojan asteroids that orbit close to these Lagrangian points of Jupiter, as I mentioned earlier, that are spaced out before and after Jupiter. And they've always been named, this is from the late 1700s, they've always been named for figures from the Trojan War of Greek mythology. And the asteroids near the L4 Lagrangian point are named for the characters from the Greek side of the war. For those over near the L5 point, the other Lagrangian point, are named from the Trojan side of that war. And anyway, so it's a historical thing relating to the discovery of those astronauts near the points which the astronomer Lagrange figured out should be out there in those places in 5 EB.
Thank you, Bill. While you were talking, I did look them up, and it's mainly Lagrangian points for the planet Jupiter because it has more stableness than the other planets, but it could be an asteroid that's at the Lagrange points for any planet. So, Gus, did that answer your question?
Yes, it certainly does. Very interesting to name them after those those wars there. Yeah, thanks. Thanks, Bill. Thanks, Chaz. W5GUS.
We appreciate those questions on here. That's why we have Skynet, so we can have some back and forth on this. So, Slide Master, slide number 13, please. So as the moon waned at the beginning of October, so do these words for this segment of Skynet. Stay safe, keep well, pray for our world. It's the only one where humans live right now. And until next week, actually, I'll be doing another segment of Skynet in a few minutes. Keep looking up so you know what's up. And this is Chaz, KF5JJ, back to our net control. Brenda, it's all yours again.
Recheck in 5BB.
Go ahead, N5BB.
Yes, one other comment there, which Gus might be interested in. You might wonder why those asteroids are at those particular locations, those Lagrangian points. It turns out that it's pretty easy for to show that other small bodies out there that are in solar orbits, in other words, they're not orbiting around one of the major planets, they're just orbiting around the sun, they will pretty rapidly, as far as the age of the solar system is concerned, get kicked out of the solar system because of the interactions with various planets. So it's like they're kind of shook around, and pretty soon, man, they get kicked out. They could get kicked in, but I think usually they get kicked out, and that might be where there's a lot of objects out there in the Oort cloud. They get kicked out where they can kind of be stable. But at Jupiter's orbit and the orbit of the Earth and other planets, objects just can't orbit the sun by themselves. They would get kicked out of the solar system. They got to be at one of these Lagrangian points. And Jupiter, the big guy, has got the most gravitational energy to hold on to him. Inside BB.
Okay, do we have any more check-ins?
November 5, Oscar Foxtrot, Claire Mesquite.
This is Kilowatt 5, November, Juliet Mike, Nick.
Kilo Echo 5, Papa Oscar Echo, Lee in Mansfield.
Okay, we picked up N5, Oscar Foxtrot, Clay, K5, NT, I'm sorry, I think it has November, Juliet, Mike, Rick, Nick, sorry, and KE5, POE, Lee. Okay, moving on. Next up, space exploration and space history, which will be presented tonight by Tom, KE5, ICX. Go ahead, Tom.
Hi, Brenda. I didn't do anything on space exploration. I did do space history and birthdays. Oops, I forgot about that other section. But we got updated, I think, pretty well for today, for tonight. So let's see here. Space history. For October 10th, 1846, was the discovery of the Neptune moon Triton. Triton was discovered by British astronomer William Lasalle on October 10th, 1846, just 17 days after the discovery of Neptune. When John Herschel received news of Neptune's discovery, he wrote to Lasalle suggesting he search for possible moons. Lasalle did so and discovered Triton just 8 days later. In 1964 was the launch of Explorer 22. This was a it was called an ionosphere satellite. It was by the U.S. Air Force. It did ionospheric and geodetic data. The spacecraft engaged in research and exploration of the upper atmosphere of outer space. 1971, it was the Salyut 1, was deorbited. It was kept aloft to study how systems behaved over an extended period in order to identify fixes to improve their reliability at later dates. The station was originally designed to just last 3 months. During the extended period, fuel consumption and ballistic and drag characteristics of the station were determined. Use of the reaction control system became difficult after an electrical failure in October. It was recommended that the station be orbited safely into the Pacific Ocean without delay before complete control was lost. The signal was transmitted on 10th of October. The same procedure was followed for all subsequent stations except Salyut 7, where control was completely lost. On October 11th, 1958, it was the launch of Pioneer 1 from Cape Canaveral, Florida. The Thor Able 1 booster traveled was able to travel 17,700 miles before returning to Earth. That was the actual space probe, where observations of the Earth's interplanetary magnetic field and first measurements of the micrometeorite density in interplanetary space. Then in 1968, the launch of Apollo 7, the first manned Apollo flight, liftoff from Complex 34 at Cape Kennedy, carrying Walter Schirra, Don Isley, and Walter Cunningham. Countdown had proceeded smoothly with only a slight delay because of additional time required to chill hydrogen in the S-4B stage. Let's see here. Although the spacecraft separation... I didn't know this. Shortly after insertion into orbit, the S-4B stage separated from the CSM. Schirra and his crew performed a simulated docking with the S-4B. The crew reported one adapter panel had not fully deployed. Two burns using the reaction control system separate the spacecraft launch and set the stage for a orbital rendezvous maneuver, which the crew made on the second day of the flight using the service propulsion engine. Crew and spacecraft performed well through the mission. During 8 burns, the service propulsion system during the flight, the engine functioned normally. On October 14th, third day of the mission, witnessed the first live television broadcast from a manned American spacecraft. And if you're listening and you're not aware, of course, the Apollo 7 command module is at the Frontiers Flight Museum in Dallas at Love Field, so come on by. Maybe you'll even see me there tomorrow. Let's see, in 1969, we have the launch of Soyuz 6. Test spacecraft systems and designs, maneuvering of the spacecraft with respect to each other in orbit, conducted scientific, technical, and medical biological experiments. It carried a welding furnace for vacuum welding experiments and depressurized orbital module. Was to have taken spectacular motion pictures of Soyuz 7 and 8, that's the 2 of them in orbit, that is, but failure of the rendezvous electronics in all 3 craft due to new helium preservation integrity check prior to the mission did not permit successful rendezvous and docking. In 2000, the launch of STS-92 was an ISS logistics flight. This brought the Z-1 truss mounted to the Space Lab pallet, a bunch of other components as well as the PMA-3, 2 DDU, CU heat pipes to the International Space Station. On October 12, 1964, was the launch of Voskhod 1, launched the world's first multi-man spacecraft, the first to carry a scientist and a physician into space. The crew were Colonel Vladimir Komarov, the pilot, and Konstantin Fiatkov, scientists, and Boris Yegorov. It made a potentially dangerous modification of the Vostok to stage American Gemini flights. No spacesuits, ejection seats, or escape tower. The one concession was backup solid retro rocket package mounted on the nose of the spacecraft. Seats mounted perpendicular to the Vostok ejection seat, so crew had to crane their necks to read instruments still mounted in their original orientation. Tested the new multi-seat spaceship, investigated the in-flight work potential and cooperation of the crew, consisting of specialists. The mission featured television pictures of the crew from space. In 1969, the launch of Soyuz 7. This tested out systems and designs, maneuvering the spacecraft with respect to each other, conducted other scientific capabilities. In 2005, the second Chinese space mission, the launch of Shenzhou 6, the 2 astronaut crews spent 5 days in space and worked in the Shenzhou orbital module for the first time. Aside from biomedical experiments, the nature of their work was not divulged, and few images of the interior of the orbital module were released. In 2008, the launch of TMA-13, this was with Richard Garriott on board as a space tourist. Richard Garriott was born July 4th, 1961, Cambridge, England. British-born American computer game developer, became the 6th space tourist and the second-generation American to go into space. Garriott grew up in Houston, the son of NASA's astronaut Owen Garriott, who first flew into space on July 28, 1973 as part of the Skylab 3 program. Many of Garrett's friends and neighbors were astronauts, and Garrett developed an early interest in space flight. Both of them were avid ham radio operators as well. On October 13, 1958 was the launch of Explorer 7. This achieved orbit and began providing sufficient geophysical information on solar and Earth radiation, magnetic storms, micrometeorite penetration. The satellite also successfully demonstrated a method of controlling internal temperatures. Same date, launch of Soyuz 8 in 1958 tested spacecraft systems designs, maneuvering spacecraft with respect to each other in orbit. Would have docked with Soyuz 7 and transferred the crew while 6 took film from nearby. However, a failure of the rendezvous electronics in all three craft due to new helium preservation integrity test prior to the mission did not permit successful rendezvous and docking. And now on to birthdays. We have on October 10th, 1946, the birth of Franco Minerva. He's an Italian biologist, payload specialist, astronaut from 1989 to 92. He was part of the ESA, and he was on STS-46, TSS-1, 8 days in space, and flew on STS-46 in 1992. 1958, same day, was the birth of Dr. John Mace Grunfeld. He was an American physicist and mission specialist from 92 to 2010. He spent 58.6 days in space on 5 different space flights, included STS-67, 81, 103, 109, and 125. 1962 is the birth of Rex Wilheim. He was the first test pilot mission specialist from 96 to 2018. He had 3 flights for a total of 36.4 days in space, flew on STS-110, STS-122, and STS-135. On October 11th, 1936, was the birth of Charles Gordon Fullerton. He was an American test pilot. He had 2 space flights for a total of 16 days in space. He flew on orbit in STS-3 and STS-51F. On October 12th, 1932, was the birth of Ed Jake Garn. He was an American senior payload specialist astronaut from 1984 and 85, and 1 space flight of 7 days, flew in orbit on STS-51D. I believe he was one of only 2 congressmen that have flown in space. Next is birth of Oleg Novinski in 1971. He was a Russian pilot from 2006 on, it says here, so I have a picture of him from 2016. Lieutenant Colonel for the 4th Army. He had 2 space flights for a total of 143 days in space. Flew on orbit to TMA 06M in 2012 and then MS 03. I got lots of birthdays. Well, this is the last one. 1952 for October 13th, the birth of Michael Urim Rich Clifford. He was an American test pilot mission specialist from 1990 to 1997. And with the U.S. Army, he had 3 space flights for a total of 27.8 days in space. He flew on orbit from STS-53, 59, and 76. And that's it for me. Ms. Brenda, back to net control. This is KE5ICX.
Thank you, Tom. Do we have any more check-ins now? Okay, next section is Miss Carolyn's Constellation of the Week, and we'll call on Chaz, KF5JHA. Go ahead.
Good evening once again, everyone. Kelly, K5KTX, told me in the Echo Link chat that tonight is the International Observe the Moon. So please, if it hasn't set yet, go out there and take a look at it. So that's a good thing. Brenda, I forgot to make a comment about the flashes on the moon. I have another theory. I think the flashes on the moon are all those tourists that are on the moon taking flash pictures of the Earth. That's what I think. Anyway, I've lost all my credibility, haven't I? Slide Master, slide number 14, please. Miss Carolyn's Constellation of the Week is named in honor of Silent Key Carolyn, KC5OZT. Carolyn contributed to Skynet each week, almost from its beginning in 2012 until May of 2019, with a detailed look at one particular constellation each week, since there are about 52 easily visible constellations seen in Texas throughout the year, out of the 88 total constellations. So Miss Carolyn covered the entire sky in a year. In her honor, we've continued that tradition of a constellation per week and named this segment after her. Miss Carolyn's Constellation of the Week this week is actually a twofer. Pisces Austronus, the southern fish, and it's either Grus or Gross, or Grus. I'm going to go with Gross. Gross? No, Grus. I think it's Grus. The crane. Slide Master, slide number 15. Other than the dozen or so jokes that I've done on Echolink over there, we've got this slide right now that has all sorts of jokes on it. Where do fish keep their money? You know, these are related to the constellation of the week. Actually, we have two of them. Where do fish keep their money? In the riverbank, of course. Number two, why did the fish get bad grades? Because he was at, well, actually below sea level. SEA. Okay, I thought that was a funny one. Why don't fish like playing basketball? Because they are terrified of nets. Okay, on to the other constellation. Lightweight babies are delivered by a stork, but heavy babies are... I had to talk about this because I had, Jethro Lee earlier. So heavy babies are delivered by a crane. What kind of bird works on a construction site? A crane. What bird can lift the most? A crane. Okay, that's enough for the moment. Slide number 16, please. Pisces Austronus, the southern fish, is located below Aquarius. The Greeks knew that the constellation is the great fish and depicted it as swallowing the water poured out by Aquarius, the water bearer. The two fish represented by Pisces constellation were said to be the offspring of the great fish. Slide number 17. Fomalhaut, which is Alpha Pisces Austroni, named Fomalhaut, is derived from the Arabic, which means the mouth of the fish. It is one of the four royal stars, or heavenly watchers, of the ancient Mesopotamia. And the others being Regulus, Aldebaran, and Antares. Fomalhaut is the 18th brightest star in the sky, shining at magnitude 1.3. It is the main sequence star, A3, which is about twice the diameter of our sun and 14 times more luminous than our sun. It lies at a distance of 23 light years. Fomalhaut became noteworthy for being the first star to have an extrasolar planet, Fomalhaut b, that has been imaged in visible light. Lasalle 9352. This is a faint but notable star. It lies in the southeastern corner of the constellation. It's about 1 degree south-southeast of Pi Pisces Austronus. It can be seen in a 50-millimeter finder scope. The star is noted for being the 10th closest star to our solar system, and for its very large proper motion. It is the 4th fastest proper motion star in the sky. The 3 fastest stars are Barnard's star and Ophiuchus, Catalin's star and Pictor, and Groombridge, 1830 in Ursa Major. Lasalle 9352 is a red dwarf star of magnitude 7.39, and it's 11.9 light years away. It has a luminosity of only 1/85th that of our sun. Slide number 18, please. NGC 7314, ARP 114, is also its name, is in the Atlas of Peculiar Galaxies, noted NGC 7314 as a spiral with a detached segment and having almost no nucleus. Dave Hutchinson writes that ARP 14 is a magnitude 11 spiral galaxy and is classified as a Seyfert galaxy. Seyfert galaxies are active galaxies that show high ionization emission lines. Dave writes NGC 7314 as an easy target with a 16-inch Newtonian and reports that some have even seen this galaxy with as small a telescope as a 6-inch. NGC 7313, Dave Hutchinson writes, is a galaxy that is a faint, small companion not very far away to the southwest of NGC 7314. But it shines with a mere meager 14.39 magnitude. So much more difficult to see. You need larger telescopes for that. Slide number 19, please. Hickson Compact Group 90, which is NGC 7173, 7174, and 7176. Three galaxies will eventually merge into one. It's approximately 100 million light years distance from the Earth. And the three pictured galaxies, NGC 7173, 7174, and 7176, are part of the Hickson Compact Group 90, named after Paul Hickson, who first cataloged these small cluster of galaxies in the 1980s. NGC 7173 and 7176 appear to be smooth, normal elliptical galaxies with not much gas and dust. In stark contrast, NGC 7174 is a mangled spiral galaxy barely clinging to independent existence as it is ripped apart by its close neighbors. The strong tidal interactions surging through the galaxies has dragged a significant number of stars away from their home galaxies. These stars are now spread out, forming a tenuous luminous component in the galaxy group. Slide number 20, please. Grus, the crane constellation, lies in the southern sky. Its name means crane in Latin. The stars of Grus were once part of the constellation Pisces Austronus. That's why we're talking about them together. The constellation first appeared in the Celestial Atlas in 1603. In John Bayer's Unimetria, in the early 17th century, it briefly went by the name of the Flamingo. Grus is the 45th constellation in size, occupying an area of 366 square degrees in the sky. Grus is one of the 12 constellations created by the Dutch explorers in the late 16th century. The only connection the crane has with mythology lies in the fact that it was a sacred bird to the god Hermes. Slide number 21, please. Alnair, which is Alpha Grusis, yes, I think that's, the genitive, is the brightest star in the constellation. It has an apparent magnitude of 1.74 and approximately 101 light years distance from our solar system. Alpha Grusis is either a main sequence star with a stellar classification of B65 or B74, a subgiant. Its radius is about 3.4 times that of the Sun, 4 times the solar mass, and is about 263 times more luminous than our star. The Sun's estimated age is about 100 million years. Alnair is a rapid rotator with a projected rotation velocity of 250 kilometers per second. 215 kilometers per second? That's fast. Based on the excess infrared emission, the star is believed to have a dust disk that's in its orbit. Beta Grus, Gruid, is a red giant belonging to a spectral class M53. Is a visual magnitude of 2.146 and is 177 light years distance from the Sun. It is the second brightest star in Grus. The star is classified as a semi-regular variable as its luminosity varies in magnitude from about 0.4. Oh, it varies about half a magnitude with a period of 37 days. This is 2.4 times the Sun's mass and 180 times the solar radius. It's approximately 1,500 times more luminous than our Sun. And one more star that I want to talk about in Grus is Delta Grus. It's a binary star. It's composed of a G73 type star with an apparent magnitude of 3.97 and an M4.5 3A class star with a magnitude of 4.17. Under good conditions, both visible to the unaided eye. Slide number 22, please. The Grus Quartet is a group of 4 interacting galaxies in GC 7552, 7590, 7599, and 7582, located northeast of the star Theta Grus. All of the galaxies are members of the IC 1459 group. The galaxies, the 3 of them, 7590, 7599, and 7582, occupy an area of only 10 arc minutes across and are sometimes known as the Grus triplet. Slide number 23, please. I like this object. It's called the Spare Tire Nebula. Tire is spelled T-Y-R-E, though. IC 5148 is another name for it. It's a beautiful planetary nebula located some 3,000 light years away and can be seen about a degree west of the star Lambda Crucis. Nicknamed the Spare Tire Galaxy, it is a diameter of a couple of light years and is one of the fastest expanding planetary nebula known. It's expanding at a rate of 50 kilometers a second. We've heard about it. It's much faster than it recently has. The nebula occupies an area of 2 minutes by 2 minutes and has a visual magnitude of 16.5. This is not something you will see with the two eyes. No, what you're going to have to do is get a big telescope and take a look at it. Big telescope, or maybe images. And this is KFI stage, and this is Skynet. Oh my audio is fading? Oh. Slide number 24. There are a few more Astronomical League observing program objects in the constellation of Pisces Austronus, the Southern Fish, and Grus the Crane. I've just given you a sampling of a few of those objects. The Astronomical League has over 70 different observing programs, most of which have about 100 objects. If you observe just 10 different objects in an observing program each month, then you can earn a certificate and a pen in about a year. Slide number 25. And that is Miss Carolyn's constellation of the Sweet, Pisces, Austronus, the Southern Fish, and Grus the Crane. I want to thank my friends Dave Hutchinson and Dennis Harwell for the research and words that I keep sky objects that I borrow and use from them every night. I also at times use the website, and I use it tonight, constellation-guide.com for information. Next time I'll take a look at a constellation, Lacerda, the Lizard. This is KFI.
Check on it. This is WB5OZL. Do we have any more check-ins? All right, unheard. Next, space launches for this week. Tom, K5ICX. Go ahead.
Oh, thank you, Miss Brenda. Well, I've got some of the earlier ones. The Sentinel 13, which did take off on October 15th, a long march to F booster, with 3 Chinese astronauts on board to rendezvous and dock with the Chinese space station in low Earth orbit. This is China's 8th crewed space mission and the second to the Chinese space station. Then today, as Bill mentioned, launch of Lucy on Atlas V from Launch Complex 41. Launch the Lucy spacecraft. It will fly to 7 Trojan asteroids, a new family of asteroids that orbit the Sun in front and behind Jupiter. The rocket will fly in the 401 vehicle configuration, 4-meter fairing, no solid rocket boosters, and a single-engine Centaur upper stage. On October 21st, there'll be a test flight from Naro Space Center in South Korea. The KSLV-2 rocket will launch on its first orbital launch attempt. Korean Space Launch Vehicle 2, or NURI, was scheduled and developed by Korea Aerospace Research Institute. It will carry a dummy payload. On October 22nd will be an Ariane 5 launch from Kourou, French Guyana, ELA-3, designated VA-255. The launch is an SES-17 Syracuse 4A communications satellite. The communications satellite will provide internet connectivity to airline passengers over the Americas, the Caribbean, and Atlantic Ocean for SES of Luxembourg. The Syracuse 4A spacecraft was built by Thales Alenia Space and will provide communication services for the French military as well. Now, over the next couple of weeks, there to be determined, there will be a Falcon 9 Starlink 2-2 launch from SLC-4E at Vandenberg Space Force Base. Will carry a batch of Starlink Internet satellites. The mission is expected to deploy 51 Starlink satellites into high-inclination orbit. On October 24th, 25th, will be a launch from the Takashima Space Center in Japan. The Japanese H-2A rocket will launch a replacement satellite for Japan's Quasi-Zenith satellite program, which provides regional navigation services over the Asia-Pacific region. Let's see here. The H-2A rocket will fly in a 202 configuration with 2 strap-on solid rocket boosters. On October 27-28, there will be a launch of a Soyuz Progress 79P from the Baikonur Cosmos drone in Kazakhstan. This will be the 79th Progress cargo delivery ship to the International Space Station. The rocket will fly in a Soyuz 2.1A configuration. On October 30th, we have a Falcon 9 manned mission from Kennedy Space Center at Launch Complex 39A. Will launch Crew Dragon spacecraft on its 5th flight with astronauts. It will include Raja Sherry, Thomas Mashburn, European Space Agency astronaut Matthias Maurer, and NASA mission specialist Kyla Barron. Will launch on the Crew Dragon spacecraft to begin a 6-month expedition on the International Space Station. Crew Dragon will return to a splashdown at sea. And that's it from me, Brenda. Back to you, KE5ICX.
All right, thank you, Tom. Next up, recent astronomical discoveries. And I'm going to report on that. The name of this article or title is How the Sun's Magnetic Forces Arrange Gas Particles. Solar prominences hover above the visible solar disk like giant clouds held there by a supporting framework of magnetic forces originating from layers deep within the sun. The magnetic lines of force are moved by ever-present gas currents, and when the supporting framework moves, so does the prominence cloud. A research team from the University of Göttingen and the Astrophysics Institutes at Paris, Potsdam, and Locarno observed how magnetic forces lifted a prominence by 25,000 kilometers, about 2 Earth diameters, within 10 minutes. The results of the study were published in the Astrophysical Journey. This uplift corresponds to a speed of 42 kilometers per second, which is about 4 times the speed of sound in a prominence. Oscillations occurred within a period of 22 seconds, during which positively charged ions of iron were up to 70% faster than natural helium atoms. The charged iron ions have to follow the movement of the magnetic field, but the uncharged helium atoms are not affected in the same way. In fact, the helium atoms are carried along by the ions, but only partly because there are not enough collisions between the two types of particle since the gas pressure is too low. Such conditions, where partially ionized gas exists with few collisions, play an important role in astrophysics. Their role is not just demonstrated in solar prominences, but also in the following: the huge gas clouds from which stars and planets form, the gas that fills the vast expanse between stars, and in the gas between galaxies. Theoretical astrophysicists have already simulated such conditions as two fluids interacting only weakly with each other. Some of the previous assumptions used in model calculations can now be verified thanks to these new measurements and our results, says Dr. Eberhard Weir from the Institute for Astrophysics at the University of Göttingen. The team carried out the observations at the Solar Telescope in Locarno, where it is only possible to measure two emission lines simultaneously. Now, the scientists are planning extended observations at the French telescope on Tenerife, where several lines can be measured at the same time. In addition, the light intensity for the telescope has increased fourfold, which will enable such a short exposure time for the light-sensitive cameras that even shorter oscillation periods will be measurable. We may then find even higher velocity differences between the charged ions and the neutral atoms, added Weir. Okay, let's see what's next. Visible satellite passages, KE5ICX. Do you have anything for us?
Oh, sure. I've always got something for you. Let's see here. We've got the International Space Station has several passes that are pretty good. We have October 21st. I'll go ahead and throw these up on the stream if you're interested. 21st is minus 3.7 magnitude. It'll be out of the west-southwest at 6:55 in the morning, or reach its highest point at 58 degrees at 6:58, and it'll fall at 7:02. Following day, October 22nd, minus 3.6 magnitude, 6:10 in the morning at 45 degrees, so it'll be coming out of a shadow, reach its highest point at 71 degrees at 6:11, and it will fall to the northeast at 6:15. Next up is the Tiangong Space Station. That one has, let's see here, one pass October 17th that looks pretty good. This is a 1.5 magnitude at 19:58 in the evening, reaches its highest point at 20:01 at 65 degrees, and falls to the northeast 20:02 at 31 degrees. That one also goes into shadow. Evansat is the next really good one. This is the dead environmental satellite that's in orbit. It's huge, so it's easy to spot. Well, maybe not so easy, but in city skies, but it is easy to spot otherwise. Got one on October 18th. That pass is a 3.1 magnitude at 6:27 a.m. It reaches its highest point at 6:32 at 79 degrees, and it will fall to the south at 6:37. October 20th is the next best one. This is a 3.1 magnitude, 6:52 a.m., reaches its highest point at 6:57 at 56 degrees, and falls to the south-southwest at 7:02. Yay. And then October 21st, we've got a pretty good one, 3.6 magnitude, 6:15, reaches its highest point at 6:20 at 60 degrees, and falls at 6:25 from north to south. Then finally, October 23rd, there is a 2.9 magnitude at 6:40 a.m., reaches its highest point at 6:46 at 75 degrees, and then falls to the south-southwest at 6:51. All this information is available at Heaven's blog. All you need to do is plug in your longitude and latitude information, and either allow the cookies to go ahead and take on that, and it will always bring you back to your location specifically, or you can set up an account, and then you can log in, and from any device, internet-connected device, you'd be able to get this information for your specific area. Back to you, Brenda, KE5I6.
Thank you, Tom. Okay, do we have any more check-ins? All right, does anyone need any fills? Okay, I think it's time to shut this down. We'll be back, though, in just a few minutes with the Afterglow Movie Net discussing the movie E.T. So tonight we had 22 hams participating on the air, thanks to all who checked into this evening. We hope you'll join us here next week and every Saturday night at 9 o'clock p.m. to discuss astronomy, space, and space exploration. On this net, the sky is never the limit. We're always looking for net control stations for this and all other DARC nets. If you would like to try your hand at this, contact any of the net controls by sending an email to nets@w5fc.org. You can follow topics and discussion about this net and astronomy in general on Facebook and Twitter, as well as our audio and video streams, video archives, and other useful internet resources by going to w5fc.org at the conclusion of this net. Until next Saturday night, this is WB5OZL, Brenda, and I will be closing the net at 10:26 local time and returning the repeater to normal amateur use. 72, everybody, and enjoy the evening discovering the universe.
And we'll be back in about 5 minutes for tonight's net. And I hope somebody can take the net this evening. I don't think I'm going to make it. So volunteers would be appreciated. KE5I6.
Tom, JJ and I have been discussing the stuffed dog that you have behind you, and it looks like it's moving now. He thinks you've attached it to a Roomba vacuum cleaner, and that's why it's moving. KF5, JJ.
Oh, that's Chloe. She's a sound sleeper, and yes, I have to go and check on her occasionally to make sure she's still breathing, but she sleeps very deeply.
Normal state.
N5HYP.
Tom, would you like to take the net this evening? This would be a good one for you, plus you can make your announcements.
I hadn't really planned
on that, but I guess it could. I don't have any. Let me get myself organized.
It's easy. You get synopsis of the storyline. I'll read that for as long as my voice will hold out.
I'm completely operational, and all my circuits are functioning perfectly.
What did you think about the acting and characterization? So then you're out normally, but this would be really good. You'll be fantastic. Better than fantastic. You'll be fantastically fantastic.
Now give me a minute. Let me get something to write down call signs with.
Okie dokie. You see, no good deed ever goes unpunished. That's what we're about here.
Yeah, don't I know. This is N5HYP.
This is N5HYP, and good evening. You are listening to the Afterglow Movie Net. The movie this week is Steven Spielberg's 1982 classic E.T. the Extraterrestrial. I'm your erstwhile network net host this evening, talking about this movie. We'll have an opportunity for you to talk about the plot, the characters, special effects, and anything else you want to. I thank Mr. Tom General for roping me into this opportunity here, and hopefully we'll do him proud. Let's take some check-ins first, see who's out there. I'm not monitoring Echolink, so we will do RF check-ins first, and then we'll do Echolink second, and then we will have Mr. Tom read the synopsis of this fine motion picture. So let's see who's out there RF-wise right now for the Afterglow Movie Net. This is N5HYP. Please come now with your call sign and your name, please.
Kilo Golf 5 Bravo Zulu Whiskey J near Wedford, and yes, I have seen the film.
November 5 Bravo Bravo. Bill in Irving. Yes, I saw the movie, and please don't call on me first. I've got a project to do another 5 minutes before I can participate.
November Tango 5, Tango Mike. Tony in Dallas? Yes, we have seen the movie.
Whiskey Bravo 5, Oscar Zulu Lima, Brendan DeSoto, and yes, I watched the movie.
Kilo Echo 5, India Charlie X-Ray, Tom, Louisville. Yeah, I saw the movie too.
Okay, that's a good starter set. We got KG5BZWJ, yes, he saw the movie. N5BB Bill, yes, he saw the movie, but he wants to be called a little bit later. And T5TM, Tony, you betcha, they saw the movie. WB50ZL, Miss Brenda, yep, she did. And KE5ICX, he's better have. He's the instigator of this darn thing. Yes, he's seen the movie. Anybody else like to check into the net? Please come now. This is N5HYP. Wow, nobody else on RF? Okay. Anybody on Echolink? I'm not monitoring right now, but if there is someone on Echolink, we'll wait just a minute, and please come now with your check-in. This is N5HYP.
Foxtrot 5, Papa Delta Sierra, Billy and Sherman, yes, I have seen the film.
Well, very cool. So I got KF5 PDS Miss Billy up there in Sherman. Yes, she's seen the movie. Well, I guess I'll tell you what we'll do. We'll take another round of check-ins. Yeah, well, let's see if anybody else from Echolink. I didn't wait long enough after she was done. Anybody else from Echolink or RF, please come now.
Whiskey 5 Echo Bravo Bravo. David in Dallas, RF. Yes, I've seen it.
That was W5EBB. Very good. Hi, David. And yes, you saw the movie. Okay. Before we get into Tom's synopsis, we wanted to... It's been a long time since some of us have gotten together for an in-person event. And so I talked with Tom about a month or so ago and suggested an in-person event outside. I have a projector, I have speakers, I have a backyard, I have a fire pit, and that's where we've been watching a lot of our movies with my daughter Anna, the school teacher, over the last year when the weather was permitting, not 100 degrees and or not 0. And so we thought it might be kind of a fun idea to do that for the Afterglow group. And I suggested an interesting movie, which is the original British version of the Max Headroom program. If you remember, it was originally done in 1975 as Max Headroom 20 Minutes into the Future. It was then remade in 1987 as the first episode of 14 episodes of an ABC network series here in the United States, done by pretty much the same people. So, on Friday night, the 29th of October, 2 weeks from yesterday, we're going to get together at my place for s'mores and some entertainment. Probably start time would be about 7 o'clock for some cartoons, and then 7:30 for the first presentation, which is available on YouTube. So if you can't make it to the in-person thing, at least you can see the British movie on YouTube. I'm also going to show the from the DVD copy that I have of the American episode as well. So that's at 7 o'clock at my place. I live in Irving, 2713 Lake Gardens Drive. And you're all invited. Would love to have a little bit of an idea of who's going to be able to come. So I'll give you my email address. It's n5hyp@arrl.net. And you are welcome to spread the word and bring Afterglow denizens who aren't participating in this net tonight. Let them all know about this. It'll be a lot of fun. We'll talk about it again later and again next week. And hopefully Tom will be able to get out some form of an email related to this as well. Now, this is all weather permitting, of course. If it happens to be 110 degrees or it happens to be snowing or raining, we won't be doing this. And we'll have to figure out a way to let everybody know if it's going to get physically canceled. But God willing, the creek don't rise. It will be good weather. So I give a pause here if anybody has any fills on the address and the time and the date. Please come now. This is N5HYP. Okay, and the reason I chose Friday was because Saturday has so many nets. You got TechNet and Skynet, and then the Afterglow net with the traffic net before that, and so it's Friday night was a little bit better for getting people to be able to maybe get out. I don't know about work for some people, but I think I should be clear. At least at the moment. That's another potential possibility for something to get canceled, but I'll know that probably at the beginning of this week. I doubt it, but anyway. So, let's go talk back about our movie for this week, which is E.T. by Steven Spielberg. And Tom, General, could you give us a synopsis of the movie before we get into commentary on the plot? So, Tom, take it away. This is N5HYP.
All right, Bill, I can't imagine anybody who hasn't seen this movie, but at any rate, you'll hear the plot. You may remember lots of different memories about it anyway. So this is from Wikipedia. They say alien botanists secretly visit Earth at night to gather specimens in a California forest. One of the aliens separates from the group, fascinated by the distant city lights. The U.S. government vehicles arrive and chase the startled creature. The other aliens depart, abandoning the creature on Earth. In a nearby neighborhood in San Fernando Valley, a 10-year-old Elliot Taylor suspicions are aroused when he pitches a baseball into a tool shed and the ball is thrown back. Later that night, Elliot returns with a flashlight and discovers the creature among the corn stalks. The creature shrieks and flees the scene. Despite his family's disbelief, Elliot leaves a trail of candy to lure the alien into his house. Before bed, he realizes the alien is imitating his movements. The next morning, he feigns sickness to stay home from school and play with him. Elliot can feel the alien's thoughts and emotions shown when the alien accidentally opens an umbrella, startling him, and simultaneously Elliot several rooms away. Later that day, Elliot introduces his older brother, Michael, and 5-year-old sister, Gertie, to the alien, deciding to keep him hidden from their mother, Mary. When the children ask the alien about his origins, he shows them by levitating several balls representing his planetary system and demonstrates his powers by reviving dead flowers. He demonstrates his healing power through his glowing fingertip, and a minor cut on Elliot's finger. At school the next day, Elliot begins to experience a much stronger empathic connection with the alien, exhibiting signs of intoxication when the alien is at home drinking beer and watching television and freeing frogs in his biology class. The alien dubs himself E.T., reading a comic strip where Buck Rogers, stranded, calls for help by building a makeshift communications device and is inspired to try it himself. E.T. gets Elliot's help to build the device to phone home by using a speak and spell. Michael notices that E.T.'s health is declining and Elliot is referring to himself as we. Throughout this, the boys are unaware that E.T. is being tracked by the government agents and are now being spied upon. Halloween night, Michael and Elliot dress E.T. as a ghost to sneak him out. Elliot and E.T. head to the forest where they successfully call home. The next day, Elliot wakes up in the field finding E.T. gone. Elliot returns home to his worried family. Michael discovers E.T. dying next to a culvert and takes him home to an almost dying Elliot. Many become horrified upon discovering her son's illness and dying alien, just as a group of government agents dressed in astronaut suits led by Keys invades the house. Scientists set up a lab in the house, asking Michael, Mary, and Gertie what they know about E.T. While they're treating Elliot and E.T., the mental connection between them disappears. E.T. appears to die while Elliot recovers. Elliot is carried away, screaming that the doctors are killing E.T. as they try to revive him. When they pronounce him dead, Michael discovers that the flowers that E.T. previously revived are dying again. As Elliot recovers, the scientists first return him to his family, but then Keys leaves him alone with Elliot. With E.T., Elliot says a tearful goodbye, telling him he loves him before closing the case. E.T.'s heart light begins to glow. Elliot notices the chrysanthemum is once again coming back to life and opens the case. E.T. reanimates and tells Elliot that his people are returning. Elliot and Michael steal a van that ET has been loaded into, and chase ensues. Michael's friends joining them on bicycles, invading the authorities. Suddenly facing a police roadblock, ET helps them escape by using his telekinesis to lift them into the air towards the forest like he had done for Elliot before. Standing near the spaceship, E.T. heart glows as he prepares to return home. Mary, Gertie, and Keys show up. E.T. says goodbye to Michael and Gertie as she presents him with a flower he had revived. Before boarding the spaceship, he embraces Elliot and tells him, "I'll be right here," pointing his glowing finger at Elliot's forehead. He picks up the chrysanthemum and boards the spaceship. As the others watch to take off, the spaceship leaves a rainbow in the sky. And if you manage to get through the ending sequence of that movie without a little bit of mistiness, you weren't watching the movie. Back to you, Tom, KE5ICX.
Hey, there we go. KE5ICX N5HW. Thanks for the synopsis. Tell you what we're going to do. I am going to do this a little more randomly. I'm gonna do comments not in the order that they were checked in tonight, just to keep you on your toes. So we're gonna start with NT5TM, Tony and Company. You watched the movie. I'm sure you've seen it multiple times. What do you think about the plot? This is N5HYP. Go.
Well, I do have a short story about this movie. I can't really incriminate anyone because the person who broke the law in this case is no longer alive. But many years ago, of course, I saw this movie in theaters when I was young, and it was very exciting. And in those days, they did not really want to sell people videotapes that you could watch at home whenever you wanted. And even renting movies was rather exceptionally difficult. This was before big chains like Blockbuster. To rent a video at your local, grocery store, video store, you had to provide them with a large deposit and 19 credit cards and the names of all your ancestors and so forth. It was really tedious. And this movie wasn't out yet anyway. Well, I had a cousin who was a cameraman at a local TV station. So he worked out a deal with the theater manager where he set up his giant camera in an empty theater, and they screened the movie, and he copied it on that 3/4-inch videotape and made videotapes for all sorts of people, family members, theater employees. I mean, this was a big hit. So that's my strange story from the early days of E.T. What I'm most struck by the plot now is at the time when I was little, it's been a long time since I've seen this movie. I don't think it's been since I was that young, but it's been quite a while. It seemed to just go whooshing past. The movie seemed to take hardly any time at all. Now that I'm older, it's really evident that the plot is very methodical. We get to know the kids, their relationships with one another. We get to see the mother. There's a lot of slow building with the government agents gradually closing in and becoming more menacing. It's a much more carefully constructed brick-by-brick movie than I had remembered. It's surprising that when, little, I would have thought this movie was only about 2 minutes long, because usually kids want movies that are really fast. But it must have been engaging because, boy, did it seem fast then. So at the moment, I'm just being impressed by its construction. We're rewatching it. I know Aaron and I will have more comments a little bit later in the net when we talk about the characters and the effects and the music. NT5TM.
NT5TM, N5H5P. Well, very good. Yes. And I remember, seeing it when it came out. I wasn't a little kid, but it did feel like it went pretty fast. But boy, it was very engaging and had just some great plot elements I'll talk about later on. Number 2 on the list, if our friend Billy up there in Sherman, KFI PDS. Glad to hear you again tonight. What do you think about ET, the extraterrestrial? This is N5HYP. Go.
Thank you, Tom. I love E.T. It's such a great film, and as Tom said, KU5ICX said, at the end, it's like you are fighting back. I'm just, fighting back the tears. It's just like the happy tears. You're so happy that E.T. his journey back home, and it's just such a good, feel-good film. And however long it is, you don't notice because you're just so thoroughly engrossed and immersed in the story that you don't. To me, it doesn't matter how much time it passes by. And as Tony mentioned, it is a very carefully crafted film, and all the plot devices, everything is everything is in its place. And I love the cast, and we can talk about that more later. But the plot just moves along. It has so many funny devices in there. I love when E.T. hides among the stuffed animals. I thought that was just perfect. And it's a movie I have fond memories of seeing it for the first time in the theaters and being able to buy Reese's Pieces right there at the concession counter before you saw the film. You were eating them right along with E.T. That's the first film I can remember that had merchandise like ready, before the movie came out. They were already plugging those Reese's Pieces. So when me and my mom went back a couple of years ago, pre-COVID, to see the anniversary showing, we had to buy the compulsory Reese's Pieces to eat right along with E.T. So very fond memories of this film, and it's definitely one that I will watch time and time again. So love the plot, love the characters, and it's just a great movie, especially for this time of year, since there's a Halloween scene in there. To me, it makes it perfect. Even though it's not a Halloween movie, it makes it fun to watch around this time of year. All right, with that, I'll send it back to you. This is KFI PDS, back to net.
KF5 PDS N5HYP. Now, actually, I think E.T. put Reese's Pieces specifically on the map. It was one of the, I think, one of the best pieces of product placement ever in a movie. Like you said, kind of like a point of sale type thing. You can't go out and buy an Apple computer or that hot car from the movie theater, but you can run to the concession stand and buy those Reese's Pieces. So I think that worked really pretty well. Okay, number 3, N5BB. So you should be done with your other project. So what's your comments on the movie? You always have something to pick apart, but maybe you don't have too much about this movie that you can. We'll see once how you fare. This is N5HYP.
Okay, Tom, this is N5BB. I don't want to be a picker-aparter, but, of course, a lot of these movies, if you view them with hard science, they're silly. And this one is not, I guess some people interpret this as a science fiction movie. I would call it more of a science fantasy movie because it's really all a fantasy. I mean, and I think that Spielberg really intended it to be that way. He was using the space part of this, the alien space thing, to get through his storyline about his childhood. And the big thing, of course, was the parents splitting up. And if you really look at it, that's the core of the movie, really. His dad is off in Mexico with some other woman, and his mom doesn't know what to do. another thing about it that just kind of indicates kind of Spielberg throwing in some little comments, is when the kids are getting together to go, get E.T. to the site. Elliot was talking to one of the other kids, and the other kid says, "Can't E.T. just beam up to the spacecraft?" And of course, you know what Elliot says? "Are you stupid? This is reality." And I thought that was a really interesting little thing that Spielberg, split in there. No, we're not beaming up like Star Trek. This is reality. We got a physical spacecraft out there. We're going to go and get him up the ramp. So, anyway. The other quote I really liked was his older brother, Michael. And when he jumps in the car to drive them over to the site, near the site, the park, he's having difficulty, driving the car. Because remember, the reason he drove the car before is he would drive the car out of the garage, down the driveway, so the mom, in a hurry, could run him out and jump in the car. And so as he's having difficulty moving the car, he says, of course, his excuse is, "I've only driven backwards before." So I love those two quotes from the movie. Spielberg definitely got some little nifty Easter eggs there. And my favorite scene was Drew Barrymore seeing E.T. for the first time and giving what has to be the most perfect kid scream on TV. It is just perfect. And then E.T. screams back in his way. And then Drew Barrymore screams even better. And they keep exchanging screams. I've lost count how many of them. And I tell you, she nailed it. So I think it really had just incredibly good direction by Spielberg. This really sealed his career there as an innovative director that could get a lot out of various kinds of actors and get some good performances and craft a great movie. I think that's it from my original comments, except I might, of course, say, this is not a hard science fiction movie, so we can't really go in and try to say, well, how did E.T. heal the wound? How did E.T. get them to ride their bicycles up in the air? We can't even talk about that, because this is not a science fiction movie. It's a fantasy movie. It's a movie about emotion. That's what it really is. It's designed to pull your heartstrings. That's all I got in 5BB.
Very good, and I do believe that this was a masterfully directed movie. There's a lot of we could talk about this more in special effects, but I just really liked the use of lighting, especially in the night scenes or the scenes in the house. It was just really superb. It did not look overlit. It looked just downright natural. So from the craft standpoint, for a lot of movies in the 1980s, if they're doing indoor scenes, they're just horribly flat lit, just like a sitcom. But Spielberg just really took time to set the shots up so well with lighting that looked so natural. It was great. Okay, so we now have WB4OZL. Miss Brenda, good evening. You saw the movie, and be willing to bet you it ranks up there as one of your favorites as well. This is N5HYP, the Afterglow Movie Net.
Thank you. This is WB50ZL. Absolutely one of my favorites. But I hadn't seen it in a long time. I'm sure we probably went out and bought a copy on beta back in the 80s. Because, with the two little boys in the house, they certainly needed to see this movie a lot. To me, this is one of those nearly perfect movies. You just can't find anything wrong with it. You could nitpick a little bit, but there's so much right with it that that would just be pointless to try and pick it apart. Music was wonderful. Special effects, the acting was fabulous. The pacing, the dialogue, and one thing I love is all the attention to detail that Spielberg does. The houses look like they were actually lived in, and just so much detail there. This is one of the good alien movies. Most of the alien movies we see, they're going to eat us or kill us or do us in some way, and this was just a really sweet little alien, and you hope he comes back and brings his friends, and so that we can communicate with him. But it looks like for now they're not all that interested in setting up a close relationship with humans. Who knows why? Let's see. Yeah, towards the last scene was so emotional. I was crying, and Henry Thomas just such a good job of acting in this. It was his first role, and they cast him almost immediately when he went to the screen test. He's just a natural, and that led a lot to this, because you've got this innocent boy who's, good-hearted and just kind of a typical boy, but he's a really nice person, and how fortunate that E.T. encountered him first, because he's just, mostly just a good little guy, and so that helped carry the movie, I think. Back to net, WB50ZL.
Yeah, it is an amazing. It is. I find it really hard to pick apart this movie. Yes, and I agree with Bill. No, if you wanted to play with any science, there really was none. But it kind of plays into a lot of the government knows more than we think they do scenarios. So that's there's a lot of common like that in the movie, but that fall into the plot that make it work well. I mean, how did they? They obviously had a lot of stuff in tow with them, because they were able to set up a whole, basically, hospital isolation wing right outside of the house without anybody knowing it. That's kind of a bizarre thing, but there we go. Number 5 on my list. Okay, we had 3, 4. Where did I put 5? Oh my gosh, I missed somebody here. KE5ICX N5HYP. How you doing?
Hey Tom, I'm doing a lot better, and thank you for volunteering to do the net this evening. I appreciate that. Our I am Spartacus moment. I really did enjoy the movie. A few things, yeah, I'll do a little my pickiness on it, but it isn't really all that terrible. Aliens, when they come to Earth, He came in this big, bright spaceship that everybody could see in the city down below because E.T. could see the city. So it shouldn't come as any surprise that the G-men would show up, and they should be surprised because the thing's still on. They got all the lights on, the parking lights are on, the brake lights are on, and they're wandering around. Now, I don't know about you, but it's sort of like, I don't know, if you have an advanced interstellar spacecraft, I would figure by now you'd be wearing clothes. I just say, you know, just being able to go outside, you can't exactly turn the heat up or down. All these aliens might be able to, I don't know. And as Gertie says, she has no hair, so there's nothing really to keep them warm. And they move very slowly, and they move away from the spaceship it looks like a long distance. So even though they have interstellar capability, not wearing clothes, and they don't have any, you know, driving apparatus on Earth to quickly get back into the spaceship. So I'm deeming these the world's dumbest interstellar travelers that have ever been to Earth. Now, I could be wrong. We may actually run into some one of these days in our lifetime here and find out that they really are kind of dumb. But who knows? Let's see, what else? And they didn't really explain. It is mythical. I think the story is designed to be mythical in nature, and it's mentioned in several of the different synopses that this was extrapolation or a projection of Spielberg's own life as a child, and I can see that. This is probably Spielberg's most emotionally connected film he's ever made. Everything else has got mechanical sharks and screaming, you know, people and car chases and all of that with a little bit of, you know, slyness in the plots and some funny lines and things like that. This film actually moved a little slower, a little more deliberately, and as Tony mentioned, it was well constructed. Probably one of the best, if not the best, Spielberg film in this way. I know he did Schindler's List, but that's a whole different thing. This is a family film, but it appealed to everyone, and I think that it worked really, really well in that regard. One thing I really enjoyed, and I really noticed it's been a long time since I've seen this film too, at least 10 years, and it was interesting in the striking difference between this and Close Encounters of the Third Kind. And I remember Spielberg saying he regretted how the ending to Close Encounters was when Roy left his family, got in a red jumpsuit, and got on board the spacecraft without even looking back. He always felt bad about that because later on when he had a family, he thought about family as an important element, and this had a lot to do with family, both the extended family with E.T. and Elliot, and his own personal, and Elliot's family as well. And even Keyes had something going on there. He knew that there was a relationship, and I think that's what really gets us, because that's an allegory at the very end. You know, you loss of someone you love, and twice really in the film. It's hard not to be emotional about that because we all have stories that kind of fit in with it, and it was so authentically done. I will save my comments about the acting and the characters, because I think that really helped the film quite a bit. But overall, I think he fixed it from his Close Encounters missteps at the very end, which always bothered me, to what I thought was a very good ending. And it ended without, Elliot had a choice. You want to come along? And he said no. He's going to stay here with his family, which is exactly the opposite of what Roy did in Close Encounters. Enjoyable film. Really a lot of fun. I think I enjoyed it most this time around than I ever have in the past, because you pick up more things. As you get older, you start, counting your blessings and realize where you've been, where you're going, and the things and the travails we all go through, and thinking about, innocence of kids, and the heartbreaks and things that go along with it. I think it was well demonstrated in this film. I really enjoyed it. I'll watch it again in a New York minute. Back to you, Tom, KE5ICX.
KE5ICX and the Afterglow Movie Net. This is N5HYP. Yeah. And I'm glad you did mention Schindler's List because I've that was a highly emotional movie. In its subject matter and all that stuff. But yeah, from a family type movie, from just a fun ride. Yeah, this was his most emotional movie, and I thought had some of the best plot development of any movie there. KG5 that he's done. This is N5HYP, the Afterglow Movie Net. KG5BZW, you are number 6. How you doing tonight, and what you think about the movie?
KG5BZW. Okay, I'm on Eclipse this time. Sorry. First, about the movie, I had to wonder which actual version we were watching, if you watched it through the Peacock app. And it really did seem to be the original. Or mostly the original. I tried to look through online just briefly a while ago about new changes. I remember there's some CGI things that were added at the 20th anniversary edition, and some of that I think was actually not that well done. But anyway. And then there's also the deal with the it was just after 2001, so the terrorist reference was changed to a hippie apparently, which in the version we saw, he can't go out as a terrorist. Well, no, she actually said that here, so so I guess it's probably the original. Which I have to admit, if the special effects, I know I'm kind of going out of order here with my comments here, but it's kind of impressive. Let's see. It's hard to go after all these other good comments. E.T. is kind of I don't know. But he is kind of dumb in some ways. It's just, maybe it's but of course that's part of the plot. Is this thing really actually smart? I mean, that is a very deep part of it. It's oh wow, this is not just some weird cryptid, whatever, just like a Yeti or whatever, just some weird critter that just somebody discovered stuff. And no, it really has intelligence and can do some interesting stuff. So yeah, so I guess part of this is the silly and kind of what? He just things randomly grab things like it. I don't know. I'm sure that was to counterbalance the other aspect of, okay, well, I can do all this complicated mess too. So So it's I can't really fault that. If there's two faults with this film. Actually, I'm only going to say one fault. There's only one fault I can ever say about this film. It's about the frog release. And I just kind of I just cringe about it just because how many times has there been, somebody intending to do well, that they release their little fish or something that they can't take care of into a river or whatever, and it's like, oh, now we got a new invasive species. So, yeah, and I'm sure, I have to say, this film had to inspire some of those releases. But, yes, in the moment, in what you're supposed to feel, yeah, it feels like the right thing to do, but I'm just like, I don't like that aspect. And the other thing I wanted to say, but which is actually a cool thing about the movie, but is kind of, it's like the surreality, the space dudes that come again. Granted, that it's like it doesn't exactly make sense, but it sure does add to the surreal aspect of I am being invaded by Earth. You know, it's so Spielberg is such a good at that kind of humor. It's kind of a little bit absurdist and surreal. And yeah, it doesn't make sense, but it also does in some ways. But anyway, I guess if there's anything else I wanted to say about this film, for some people it's the Reese's Pieces. I guess for me it was as a kid who actually kind of looked a little bit like Elliot, but anyway, beside the point. It was Texas Instruments, the speak and spell, speak and read. I kind of nudged my parents to get all those kinds of things. I guess speak and spell, speak and read, and whatever the math one was it speak and math? I don't know. But anyway, I think that covers all I really wanted to go talk about on this round. KG5BW.
KG5BZW, N5HYP. I will make one comment here, kind of going forward, because I think in the next round we're going to talk about anything you want to talk about, whether they be effects or characterization. But your comment about the effects being original in what we saw on Peacock, I think you're right. And Anna made this great comment, my daughter. She goes, there's just nothing like good practicals. He said, she said, that's why this movie stands out and holds up over time. It's because the practical effects. I mean, E.T. was not CGI rendered into that movie. It was a whatever animatronic or whatever puppeteer or whatever they used to get him moving around the rooms. That was a practical. That was not CGI, and it holds up really well. In even all this time down the road, just because it was done so well. It was done so well. We got one more on this round here. W5EBB. Tell us, you always have some really cogent thoughts. What do you got about E.T., the extraterrestrial? This is N5HYP.
All right, thanks for running the net. It's interesting that Columbia initially rejected this, and the movie had a budget of $10 million they spent on it, and it made like $793 million, like 79 times what they spent. So Columbia probably is regretting that, and Universal picked it up. Now it was a movie that was well loved by everybody, and even people at the time when they saw it, like Siskel and Ebert. There's a review of this at the movies where they review this, and Poltergeist actually also as well. But they loved it, and Ebert called it something akin to The Wizard of Oz, that it was that significant a movie that they felt it would be going forward. Now, it's almost there, but they loved it, and the duo agreed, 2 thumbs up. And they also agreed it wasn't a movie about creatures and aliens and special effects. It was about love between a boy and a space alien. Okay, kind of fantastic, but it was about love. And it was unabashedly and unapologetically a feel-good movie, and people loved it. It was also a movie about separation and divorce, about a longing to reconnect with that which has been lost. And in that regard, the resolution of the movie is rather idealistic and optimistic when E.T. reunites with his fellow E.T.s. Life doesn't always wrap a pretty bow on the ending like that, but there is the portrayal of reality when E.T. and Elliot have to say goodbye. Now, if this movie were released not in 1982, but in 2021, would it be a success? I don't think so. Corny, sappy, maudlin, that's what it would be regarded as today by cynical, jaded ADD audiences. Have a look at the titles of some of the top box office leaders this year. Venom, There Will Be Carnage, Cruella, The Suicide Squad, Forever Purge, Don't Breathe 2, Halloween Kills. Okay, you get the idea. But to be fair, actually, Spielberg was also responsible for Poltergeist in this same year, 1982. Just about the polar opposite emotions elicited compared to E.T. But both featured screaming and crying children, which is a Spielberg movie trademark. Yeah, it's kind of a fact. But I like this movie. Has it stood the test of time? Well, for me, I don't think it has, because innocence has been lost. Back in the day, this movie is so appreciated by so many because it was a happy movie. It was an uplifting movie in a time when those were common themes in movies and in life. W5EBB.
W5EBB, N5HYP, very good comments all. Yeah, would this movie have been made today? No, probably not. Or it would have not been done with the quality that it was done back then. I'm going to throw a few comments in here too, and I'm going to kind of merge into both character and special effects. I already talked about effects, that I think overall the physical look of the photography, the simplicity of most of the effects, short of the green screen bicycle flying in the air thing, was which was green screen as well, was again not computer generated, and made it work well. But Spielberg did it so excellently. Characterization, I will comment that, and Anna agreed with me. My daughter Anna is a high school teacher. She teaches mostly like sophomores, and the older kids playing the game at the beginning, and then things going on at the bus stop, and comments made when they all when they see Elliot again, and just Anna goes, kids talk like that. They just do. And the dialogue for the way kids talk was so natural. I didn't really, I haven't seen that natural young kids just jabbering about stuff until Stranger Things, at least the first season, when the kids are younger. Some of the conversations that they had in the early episodes of Stranger Things reminded, were very natural as well. So that was a characterization. It wasn't a stilted script with kids acting stilted. It were kids acting like kids, talking like kids, and that was what made the movie. Yeah, and we couldn't help but laughing as Elliot was trying to show his toys off to E.T. the first time. Anna goes, that's exactly what a little kid would do. He would, show somebody new all his toys and tell them why they were important and such like that. it was a perfect characterization. And but again, another thing that always drives me nuts is adults in movies are almost, if there's kids involved, adults are always clueless. And the mom, in a lot of ways, was really clueless here. So it just kind of fit the pattern. You know, we need to see if there's some more people out there who might want to check into the net. This is N5H5P. This is the Afterglow Movie Net. We're talking about E.T., the Steven Spielberg 1982 classic. Anybody else who hasn't had a chance to check into the net or would like to, please come now.
Whiskey 5, Whiskey Lima Papa, Wilson Mobile in Louisville.
W5BLT, Bill in Garland. W5 Bravo Lima Tango. No comments, just listening to the net. Wanted to check in.
Okay, I got W5WLWP. I'm sorry, Wilson. Have you seen E.T. and do you have any comments for the net? And I also have W5BLT. Bill, he's just listening. But Wilson, any comments for the net on E.T.? Please come now. This is N5H5P.
This is W5WLP. I haven't seen the movie in 20 years. But I was just driving and listening to the conversation and just wanted to check into the net.
Well, very good. Glad to have you aboard. Was there anybody else who wanted to check in real quick? Please come now. This is N5HYP. Well, again, what I'm going to do, because this is later and we have kind of gone late on our comments, I'm just going to throw this round open for anything free for all thoughts about the movie. Let's start with Tony in T5TM. He was number one on my random round. What do you got for the last round of the net? Please come now. This is N5HYP.
Well, thank you. We've been rewatching along here with the net. We're right at the moment where Elliot has decided to stay. A comment from Aaron. I think Aaron really agrees with Anna there that Spielberg gets kids. He gives them good things to do, and he gets good performance out of them that are not too heavy-handed. They don't fall flat or short. The characters of the kids are what makes this movie so wonderful for people of all ages. Because most movies that are meant for kids by adults, the kids just don't feel right to other kids. And here they did, and now here I am decades later, and the adults and kids all feel right to me. As Aaron said, kids like to cuss. And they're not always as respectful as the grown-ups as they should be. A neat technique this movie used, it's really, you go a long time without seeing any grown-up's face except for the mother. Even when they first, arrive at the home, they're wearing those spacesuits with their gold metallized sun visors down. So they're completely faceless. It's a really neat technique to make you really focus on Elliot and Michael and Gertie, and it really works very well on their peers. It's also just really amazing to what extent they loved painting with light in this movie. You can't go in a closet without having a stained glass window shining through it. The lights in all the rooms, the lights on the spaceship. That's definitely one thing this movie had in common with Close Encounters, is that urge to kind of just play with the light and paint pictures with it, and that was very impressive as well. So I love movies with strong characters where you never have any doubt about who they are. Even the top government secret agent is excited to meet aliens rather than getting an immediate urge to nuke something. You never have any doubt about who the people are in this movie, and even when they're very stressed or sad, they really do want one another to feel good. And that's a big part of what makes it a feel-good movie, is so many characters meaning well help the audience mean well too, and help us feel great. NT5TM.
NT5TM, this is N5HRP. Very good. Appreciate the comments. Aaron agreeing with Anna on how the kids, and yes, I've just, again, it was so natural the way they act, the kids acted like kids. That's what was really important. KFDS, Miss Billy, coming in on Echolink. How are you doing tonight? And what other comments on anything else about this movie that you want to bring up? Please come now. This is N5HRP.
Thanks, Tom. Yeah, I just think it's great in these movies when, it's up to the kids to save the day, and they don't rely on, like you said, the parents are there to provide kind of the backdrop. They have a family. There's family problems at home. Mom and dad are separated, and so so that's the backdrop. But then the movie is very kid centric, and it's up to the kids to save the day, to save ET, to help him phone home, and of course they come up with their little homebrew communicator. And I think after that film was over, we were all running home to get out our speak and spells and our record players and an umbrella to line it with reflective material to see if we could contact aliens. I just love that the kids come up with this makeshift device that actually works. Yeah, the credibility of could it really work? It's like you say, Bill said it was a fantasy film, and you have to suspend belief. And but I thought that was just so great that they were able to take the toys they had and craft a communicator that got ET safely back home. And I thought it always would have been great. As an adult seeing the film, I thought it'd be great to do a sequel 30 years later with Elliot grown up as a radio astronomer and contact ET again and have another adventure or something. But as a kid, I never thought of it they should make another one, and I think I was reading somewhere briefly in between y'all talking that Spielberg did plan a darker follow-up film, but it never got made. But I didn't read too many details into that. But I'm glad it didn't. But I was, as an adult, when I went back and saw it, I thought it'd be cool to see Elliot pursue a career as a radio astronomer and hook up with ET and phone ET again, and go on with something new. But alas, that's not happened. But yeah, I just thought it's great. The kids saved the day. I love the music. Of course, John Williams, I believe, did the music for the film, and that's just always a winning combination with Spielberg directing, John Williams doing the music, uplifting, and just really, really, like they say, turns on your heart light. And even Neil Diamond had the song Heart Light. There was a lot of good music, and you mentioned the product placement. I think, to me, this was the first movie that had product placement before the film came out. And then that, Spielberg carried on with that, like Jurassic Park and things like that. It became a thing to place product before movies came out. And I thought it was great, going back to the Reese's Pieces, they lured E.T., with a trail of Reese's Pieces, so that's another kid-centric device. It's like, how are you going to lure somebody out? Well, do it with candy, let's put down little candy bits, and he picked them up and just followed the little trail. I thought that was just so perfectly done. Just very, watching it as a kid, you totally, as someone else said, you totally buy in. And Tom, I think you hit on that about, the way kids talk and behave. And I too love Stranger Things, so that really does hit all the nostalgic notes. And E.T. picked up on everything at the time, in the current time, because it came out in like summer of '82. Spielberg is the king of summer blockbuster. So yeah, I love the film, but I love the speak and spell device that they use to help E.T. get in contact with his people and get him home. So just really shows, kids' ingenuity, that they were able to put their heads together and come up with a plan to get little E.T. home. So it just made me feel like as a kid you could do things, that you were capable and that you had the imagination to see it through. So anyway, with that, I'll return it back to you. Thanks a lot. This is KF5PDS, back to net.
KF5 PDS N5H4P, very good. And I am so glad that Spielberg did not make a follow-up to E.T., did not make a sequel. I don't think that would have gone very well at all. I think it would have destroyed, what do we got? Fast and Furious, whatever, 42 by 2030 or something like that. Golly, he had a great idea. I'm sure somebody was up there going, look at how much money you could make. Well, no, just leave a good thing alone. Leave a good thing alone. N5BB, you are number 3. Comments on anything you want to talk about related to this movie, please come now. This is N5HYP, the Afterglow movie. We're talking about E.T., Steven Spielberg's classic.
Thank you, Tom. This is N5BB. I'm number 3. I'm not number 6. I'm sorry. Veiled reference to other things from the 60s. Anyway, yes, if Tony hadn't brought it up, I was going to bring up the fact that during the first part, during most of the movie, you don't see any adults' faces except for Mary Taylor, which is Elliot's mom. And that's done very carefully, so that forces you to really think about seeing everything from a kid's point of view. And you see the lower parts of adult bodies, because they're at kid height, viewing them. And I've read that apparently the science teacher for the science, lab where they were going to kill all the frogs, that science teacher was played by Harrison Ford, and that you saw his body and his voice, but you never saw his face. The first time you saw an adult, other than the mom, full in the face, other than in a mask or in one of those suits, but the first one you saw, and you really got a good look at their face, was when you saw Keyes. That was Peter Coyote, that character, the government investigator, key guy. When he finally got down to the end of the tunnel, and he was finally going in to see Elliot and E.T. So at that scene, then, all of the medical personnel, you suddenly saw all of them as real people, their faces and everything. By the way, I've read that they brought in a team from a hospital. So those really were hospital workers. So all the emotional looks on their faces and what they were doing was super realistic because it was a real team from a hospital. Let's see, this is N5BB. I've already given my favorite quotes. Can't you just beam him up? No, this is reality. And I've only driven backwards. And just about my favorite scene, like I said, was Drew Barrymore trading screams with E.T. And I thought that was just acted and directed perfectly. Yeah, I think with nearly any other director and actors, that would have come out as really corny. But it looked perfectly natural. I mean, she had the most natural scream I can imagine. And that was just perfect. What else do I have to say? You know, I think that's about it in 5BB. Thank you, Tom.
Thank you, Bill, N5BB, N5HYP. Pressing on to number 4 on this list, WB5OZL, Miss Brenda. Any other final comments or follow-ups of things other people have said, please come now. This is N5HYP. This is the Afterglow Movie Net. We're discussing E.T. by Steven Spielberg.
Thank you. This is WB5OZL. The story I heard at the time about the Reese's Pieces is that they originally wanted M&Ms, and they approached the company that makes those, and they said, no, we're not doing that, and turned them down, so they went to the company that makes Reese's Pieces, which, to me, at the time, that wasn't something, it wasn't quite as, nowhere near as popular by candy as M&Ms, but it sure put them on the map, so that was a good move on their part. I was so intrigued with cutting off the heads. That's just an amazing technique. And to digress a little, it reminds me, there is a Norman Rockwell painting where little Ruby Bridges is in her little pink ruffly dress is getting to go to school. And she's being escorted by 2 federal marshals, and their heads are cut off. And he had done a study of it that showed their full bodies with their heads. It is an amazing difference in how powerful the story, much more powerful a story is without their heads. It's hard to explain. You would just have to see it, but I always think of that. And that technique was used very effectively here. Spielberg is what a genius. You know, he knows how to speak to everybody. He knows how to spin a yarn. You know, he doesn't lose momentum. I just admire him so much for his movie making. And this one is a gem. All right, back to net, WB5OZL.
Yes, I agree. This movie is a gem. WB5OZL, N5HYP, KE5ICX. Mr. Tom, final thoughts. Anything else that you think we haven't talked about? Please come now. This is N5HYP.
Well, thank you, Bill. Yeah, I would agree with most of the comments everybody had there. I won't reiterate those things. I did enjoy the kids. I thought they were really good. Well acted. Drew Barrymore has a daily program, I guess, during the day, Monday through Friday. It's just amazing that little girl is turned into the woman. But then, 40 years have gone by, so no surprise, I guess. But I was kind of doing a little interneting here while folks were talking. There were a couple of things in here I did not realize. It's also in the Wikipedia, but one is Anne Lockhart is in this. There's the gal who plays a nurse when they're inside the house after the medical community descends upon them. I thought, that person looks familiar. I couldn't place her. Well, she was on Battlestar Galactica and played Lieutenant Sheba. A regular character weekly, and she just come off of that run not too far in the past. And then the voice of E.T. was played by Pat Welsh, who lived until 1995, so she was 80 years old, I guess. She was a soap opera actress and was a chain smoker, so her raspy voice gave E.T. his trademark speech sound, it says here. So she was also hired by George Lucas for the voice of Bosch in the film Return of the Jedi. So I thought that was kind of interesting. Sometimes you see people in movies or you hear voices and you go, that sounds familiar, and then later on you find out they're in there uncredited or early acting credits for people and things like that. But I digress. Of course, John Williams, wonderful composer. He is number 2 on my list, but probably one of the first people I'd ever heard with music. In fact, I'm going to, in 10 minutes here, watch Lost in Space. John Williams did a lot of the music, including the main themes for it. Very memorable music. The guy is a national treasure. There's no two ways about it. He continues to produce some of the finest scores for motion pictures. He's the last of the Silver Age. Everybody else before him is gone. There's the Golden Age from the 40s, 30s, and 40s, and then there's the Silver Age from the 50s, 60s, and 70s, and in his case, the 80s. He was the youngest of the Silver Age group, so when he goes, that's the end of it, and that sensibility, you can tell it in his score. Full orchestral score is his forte. Nothing else to say. I think everybody else covered it. I really enjoyed the movie. Back to you, KE5I6.
KE5ICX N5HYP. Yeah, and I think the thing about John Williams, he'd done things before Star Wars, but Star Wars basically reinvigorated the symphonic sound to movie making. I think there had been, orchestras have always been a part of movie making, but Williams kind of repopularized or enhanced the concept of a symphonic sound that, as a good Brahms or Beethoven or Mozart symphony has thematic elements that will filter on through the movie, through the score, and are there to emphasize specific characters or specific circumstances, and they will twist and turn through the whole presentation, and Williams just does that really well. So that's again just one of the fun parts about this. Number 6 is KG5BZW. Any final comments, sir, before we button this thing up for bed tonight? This is N5HYP.
KG5BZW here. I don't want to be lost. It's like, is there anything to wrap up this whole net? And I was like, I don't know if I can think of anything good. There's a few things like Bill was talking about Harrison Ford. Well, no, he wasn't the science teacher, he was the principal. And there are some, like, I want to say, Laserdisc or something. I was reading through the IMDb stuff, so, I think you saw Richard Swigler as a science teacher, but I had to pause and think after I heard Bill's and others' comments about, like, well, when did you really see other focus was so much on the kids, and that's part of what makes this film good. And of course, you know, the music. Oh gosh, I think I just fell in love with John Williams' music after E.T. Not that I really had that much experience beforehand. You know, I was like 4, but yeah, it's wow. That music really stayed with me. You know, let's see what else. I don't know if there's really much else I can say. I agree with Billy about you know, it made you think that as a kid that the kids could do something, which is, you know, it's something. I think it's instilling hope in future generations is probably a good thing, you know, and I'm kind of glad Spielberg did that. So, it's probably something maybe we all have to consider a little bit. Anyway, I can't. I'm sure I had some other things to say, but I don't think there were anything that you know that had you know too much significance. So I think I'll just wrap it up with that. 5HYP, KG5BCW. Good evening.
KG5BZW, N5HYP. Okay, well, I think the last of the regular round here is W5EBB. Dave, any final, any you know, words you want to put on, wrap a bow on this net? This is N5HYP.
Sure. Well, the characters, they were all lovable, you know, and so well cast. Dee Wallace as the mom, you know, the oblivious, clueless mom until the reveal, you know. Henry Thomas as Elliot, Peter Coyote, the government guy, Robert McNaughton as Michael, the brother. He is actually a postman in Arizona now. He stopped acting a while back. And, of course, Drew Barrymore. And starring Steven Spielberg as the audience's emotion. The audience is putty in Steven Spielberg's hands. Whatever emotion he wants to elicit, he can do it. And that's kind of scary when you come across people who can do that, but it is a testament to Spielberg's talents and abilities. And I'll just say the music, of course, was stellar. I mean, this was John Williams in prime form. From the crescendos when the boys and their bikes take off into the air and the concluding fanfare when the spaceship takes off, leaving a rainbow trail arc. Throughout the movie, the scene-specific scoring is also really well done. You know, the whimsical theme during the Halloween trick-or-treating, and the more delicate treatments of the scoring where the music is just so subtle and appropriate, such as when the mother is reading Peter Pan to Gertie. It's either a Celeste or a vibraphone playing the E.T. theme slowly and softly, while E.T.'s hiding in the background, watching, just mesmerized and enchanted. The music is perfect for that scene. And it goes without saying, but I'll say it anyway, that many movies by Lucas and Spielberg simply wouldn't be the same without that X factor that John Williams adds to them through his music. The directors and actors may be the meat and potatoes of the movie, but John Williams adds the gravy. W5EBB.
No kidding. I will definitely agree. I mean, he is a master at symphonic scoring, as I said. So, very good. I don't have anything more to say that anybody else hasn't said. I think we have at least 8 thumbs up on E.T., and probably some more for the folks that are just riding along listening. But let's find out from Mr. Tom General, KE5ICX, what either gem or craptacular we have to watch next week. What do you got for us? This is N5HYP.
Well, thank you, Tom, and we'll do it at, what's it, Art Fleming's voice or whatever. Well, Tom, it may not be a flop or a success. It's maybe somewhere in the middle. We'll be watching, are you ready for this? What is the name of this film? Now I forgot the name of the film. Prometheus. Whoever made that movie. Yes, it's a prequel to the Alien and Aliens and all of that stuff. Next week's movie. It's free. You can watch it with commercials. I'll put the link out for it. I think it's on. What's it on? Oh, it's on Peacock, which is what the movie was this week. It's also available on Prime for Prime subscribers. Either way you want to do it. That's it from me. KE5ICX.
K5CX in the net. This is
Elvis has left the building.
Well, not quite yet. Just to let, again, a follow-up comment about 2 weeks from Friday night is the Afterglow movie and some more's at the fire pit behind in the Schuessler backyard in South Irving. We'll have more details available on that, but that would be starting at about 7 o'clock on Friday night, the 29th. Again, if you want to let me know that you're going to be coming, that would be great. The email is n5hyp@arrl.net, and we're gonna put this puppy to bed for the week. Thank you, Tom General, for roping me into doing net control tonight, but it was a lot of fun. I do enjoy this net when I'm around, and glad we'll do it again sometime. 73 to all. God bless, and have a great tomorrow from N5HYP. Bye.
By the way, it's going to be a beautiful week. Sunny, cool, big change of weather. No rain in 5EB.
And it will be really gorgeous for the Radio in the Park lecture and lab thing next Saturday, which I and Guy will be there doing satellite with his newly perfected rotator gizmo.
Very good. Well, it was cold enough this morning, but tomorrow morning it's supposed to be, I should say tomorrow, it's now today, early Sunday morning, it's supposed to get down to about 47, I think.